Good morning and welcome everyone. We acknowledge this morning that we are meeting on the land of the Ngunnawal people, and the spirit that was revealed to them and celebrated through law, custom and ceremony is continuing today. We honour their wisdom and that of their elders and their continuing culture, and pray that we might all work together for reconciliation and justice in this territory and throughout the nation. Welcome to everybody. Good morning. And I should have checked on David's script because it looks a wee bit like mine. This morning is Readings and Carols, this year on the fourth Sunday in Advent. A warm welcome to the St James folk who are lining up for a second dose of Readings and Carols this year. It's been great that just in the last 2 weeks we've been able to share services together. And a special welcome to those who are with us via the wonders of Zoom. Do we have anybody out there? Thanks, Helen, and thanks, Keith. In the tradition of South Woden, the Readings and Carols service takes a thematic approach to the Christmas story. We reimagine the narrative through a variety of texts. Some are sacred and familiar, some are secular and less well known, but they all remind us of the message of Christmas. They invite us to continue hoping and trusting, even believing. I think we can believe that wonders do happen. Over the past 6 years, the Readings and Carols service has focused on the light, the wonder, the joy, the grace, and the blessings that the Christmas story symbolises. Today's service focuses on courage. Now, courage seems a very fitting word for the year that we've just had. 2020 has been an epic story year. It began with a fiery summer, followed by hail, then an infectious agent of very small size and simple composition quickly became awesomely big, bringing sickness and death on a huge scale, fear, panic, and massive upheaval. However, as in all epic stories, there has also been heaps of courage, with its component elements: trust, hope, endurance, compassion, empathy, and ultimately transformation. A bit like the epic story of Christmas, really. I'll skip the COVID safety stuff because David's covered it. But I do remind you to be courageous and not sing. The choir here will take the risk, and they will be the voices. Your order of service has the readings, it has the bolded prayers, responsive prayers, and as we usually do, an offering can be made to the Christmas bowl. I think we have Christmas bowl envelopes on a table down there inside. And of course, there's morning tea afterwards, prepared fabulously with COVID protocols. So once again, thanks to the production team led by John, and today we're trying a couple of new microphones. Thanks to our ever long-suffering and patient music director, Helen, the singers who practiced and practiced and practiced, the readers, who have practiced and are doing it fairly impromptu, to Ray, the printer, and everybody involved in this morning's setup and, of course, the morning tea. So let us begin. Let us begin with a call to worship. When the world was dark and the city was quiet, you came. You crept in beside us, and no one knew. Will you do the same this Christmas, Lord? Will you come into the darkness of tonight's world? Not the friendly darkness, as when sleep rescues us from tiredness, but the fearful darkness, in which people have stopped believing that war will end, or that food will come, or that a government will change, or that the church cares. Will you come into that darkness and do something different to save your people from death and despair? Will you come into the quietness of this town? Not the friendly quietness, as when lovers hold hands, but the fearful silence when the phone has not rung, the letter has not come, the friendly voice no longer speaks, and the doctor's face says it all. Will you come into that darkness and do something different? Not to distract, but to embrace your people. And will you come into the dark corners and the quiet places of our lives? We ask this not because we are guilt-ridden or want to be, but because the fullness our lives long for depends upon us being as open and vulnerable to you as you were to us when you came, trusting human hands to hold their maker. Will you come into our lives if we open them to you and do something different? When the world was dark and the city was quiet, you came. You crept in beside us, and we found courage. Do the same this Christmas, Lord. Because God chose not a palace, but a stable. Because God chose to be one of us, not apart from us. Because God chose the margins, not the centre. And because a woman said yes when she could have said no.
We come to lighting the fourth Advent candle. The Advent candle reminds us that we are preparing for a very special birth event. In the first week of the Advent season, Joan Palmer lit a purple candle and talked of waiting. In the second week, Will and Roger lit a second purple candle and spoke of comfort. In the third week, Gary lit the pink candle and spoke of peace. And today, in the fourth week, Richard has lit the last purple candle, and we focus on courage. Now let us say together our Advent prayer. Love is born with a dark and troubled face, when hope is dead, and in most unlikely place. Love is born, love is always born. Passing the peace. At St James last week, we moved about observing protocols and sharing the peace. But today, please remain seated and offer a sign of peace to those around you while the choir sings. Our first reading, the courage of Mary. We know the scene, the room, variously furnished, almost always with a lectern, a book always, and a tall lily. Arrived on solemn grandeur of great wings, the angelic ambassador standing or hovering, whom she acknowledges, a guest. But we are told of meek obedience. No one mentions the blessing of her courage. The engendering spirit did not enter without consent. God waited. She was free to accept or to refuse. Choice integral to humanness. The second reading is the Nativity as told by St Luke. In those days, a decree went out from Emperor Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration and was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. All went to their own towns to be registered. Joseph also went from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to the city of David called Bethlehem, because he was descended from the house and family of David. He went to be registered with Mary, to whom he was engaged and who was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for her to deliver her child, And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in bands of cloth, and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn. In that region there were shepherds living in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. Then an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid, for see, I'm bringing you good news of great joy for all people. To you is born in this day in the city of David a Saviour, who is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign for you. You will find a child wrapped in bands of cloth and lying in a manger." And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace among those whom he favours." When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let us go now to Bethlehem and see this thing that has taken place, which the Lord has made known to us." So they went with haste and found Mary and Joseph and the child lying in the manger. When they saw this, they made known what had been told them about this child, and all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds told them. But Mary treasured all these words and pondered them in her heart. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen, as it had been told them. Amen.
of David's kingly line. I wanted an heir, discovered my wife's son wasn't mine. I am an obstinate lover, loved Mary for better or worse. Wouldn't stop loving when I found someone else came first. Mine was the likeness I hoped for when the firstborn man-child came, but nothing of him was me. I couldn't even choose his name. I am Joseph, who wanted to teach my boy to live. My lesson for my foster son: endure, love, give, courage.
And our fourth reading is about something where we really do need courage. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And from Luke 8, verse 16, no one after lighting a lamp hides it under a jar or puts it under a bed, but puts it on a lampstand so that those who enter may see the light.
That two carols from the stage play War Horse, which some of you may have seen, which in itself is a story of courage. It's about a young man who joins the army to find a horse that has been commandeered by the army to go and pull the gun carriages in France. Typically, and in Australia too, typically the young men that went to war, farmers, farm boys, who had one day ploughed the field and then found themselves in the trenches, perhaps going over the top and being caught in by wire. So the song by John Cairns, it contrasts this wonderful spirit of Christmas that Christians so adore with the horrors of war. And there's a scene in the movie where the horse gets famous Christmas armistice that you may have heard of, where the troops in part of the Western Front heard the others singing carols, and they came out and exchanged gifts, and until it was stopped by the hierarchy, who said it would undermine their fighting spirit. Such is the paradox of Christmas. The lamb in the manger, the light upon the lea, the moorland leaves its glory, the shepherds then bury. And all are wrapped in grace, and all are gifted birth. Peace walks upon its blessed land. Peace walks upon its blessed land. Peace walks upon its blessed land. Goodwill upon all earth. The plowboy and his traces, the lion upon the lamb, holds gifts by nature's graces, bounty to the man. And all wrapped in grace, and all are gifted birth. Peace walks upon this blessed land. Peace walks upon this blessed land. Peace walks upon this blessed land. Goodwill upon all earth. Tommy in the meadow, Tommy in the vine, Tommy on the doorstep, Tommy on the wire, and those who walk in war, and those who walk in peace, and those who walk this blessed land, and those who walk this blessed land, and those who walk this blessed land, their soul shall never cease. And those who walk in war, and those who walk in peace, and those who walk this blessed land, and those who walk this blessed land, and those who walk this blessed land, goodwill upon all earth.
Sixth reading today is Christmas. I see a twinkle in your eye, so this shall be my Christmas star. And I will travel to your heart, the manger where the real things are. And I will find a mother there who holds you gently to her breast, a father to protect your peace, and by these things you shall be blessed. And you will always be reborn, and I will always see the star, and make the journey to your heart, the manger where the real things are. Michael Woden.
To our seventh reading. And this reading comprises two excerpts from two letters written 500 years apart and continents apart, both addressing approaches to pandemics of the respective times. The first excerpt is from Martin Luther's Wittenberg letter of 1527 regarding the bubonic plague and wondering whether he should leave the city. And he wrote, "Very well, by God's decree, the enemy has sent us poison and deadly offal. Therefore, I shall ask God mercifully to protect us. Then I shall fumigate, help purify the air, administer medicine, and take it. I shall avoid places and persons where my presence is not needed, in order not to become contaminated and thus perchance infect and pollute others, and so cause their death as a result of my negligence. If God should wish to take me, he will surely find me, and I have done what he has expected of me, and so I am not responsible for either my own death or the death of others. If my neighbour needs me, however, I shall not avoid place or person, but will go freely." And the second letter came to us in the middle of this year, with the pandemic well underway. It came from a dear friend of this congregation, Dr. Graham Clugstone, who works at Lalgard, is that right, Woden? Lalgard Leprosy Hospital in Nepal. And Graham wrote to us in June about fear, stigma, false rumours, cruelty, and inhumanity. There are rising numbers of reports of deaths and distress caused by fear, stigma, ignorance, rumours, and plain, cruel inhumanity. A man from our local village died yesterday in a hospital up near Kathmandu. He did not have COVID-19 infection, but people thought that he might have. He was quite ill, but was refused treatment at hospital after hospital here in Province 2. He got sicker and sicker. He made his way up to Kathmandu, but police would not let him past roadblocks into the city to hospitals there, and instead he was admitted to a COVID hospital on the edge of Kathmandu Valley. He died a day later of liver and kidney failure and dehydration. He did not have COVID infection. Another lady died yesterday. A young guy who resented people from the local quarantine unit sharing a water tap connected electric wire to the tap. A lady who came to wash and drink in the early morning was electrocuted. Our own staff face some hostility in the local village here. Health workers elsewhere in Nepal are chased, sometimes beaten, because they work at hospitals, whether or not they deal with COVID infections. Landlords refuse to allow them to return to their rented accommodation, and there are many stories daily of stranded Nepalese workers returning from India, barred from entering their own villages. They are stranded, destitute, without food or water. Fear prevails across the country. There are many health, morbidity and mortality casualties, and much physical and mental suffering resulting from fear, stigma, rumours, ignorance and inhumanity. This may have a greater negative impact on the people of Nepal than COVID-19 infections or the lockdown. Our efforts to combat these inhumanities are outreaching to the community with facts, reason, unity and compassion, love and hope for those affected by COVID-19, and enormous gratitude to our staff who courageously carry on despite stigma and hostility.
Jake's reading is entitled The Courage. It is a Celtic poem. When the light around lessens and your thoughts darken until your body feels fear turn cold as a stone inside. When you feel yourself bereft of any belief in yourself and all you unknowingly leaned on has fallen. When one voice commands your whole heart and it is raven dark, steady yourself and see that it is your own thinking that darkens your world. Search and you will find a diamond thought of light. Know that you are not alone and that this darkness has purpose. Gradually will school your eyes to find the one gift your life requires, hidden within this night corner. Invoke the learning of every suffering you have suffered. Close your eyes. Gather all the kindling about your heart to create one spark that is all you need to nourish the flame, that will cleanse the dark of its weight of festered fear. A new confidence will come alive to urge you toward higher ground where your imagination will learn to engage difficulty as its most rewarding threshold.
Our ninth reading, The Quiet Moments When Empathy Meets Fear. This is what Jamie Robinson calls a quiet moment. It's 5 months and 2 weeks since Jamie finished building his dream home on his secluded bushland property in the pristine heart of Yowrie, 20 kilometres west of Cobargo. 5 months since a fire that was surely sent from the basement of hell burnt that home to the ground. Jamie is helping unload and distribute clean water to others caught by the same fate. Jamie's whole adult life has been defined by the quiet moments that the rest of the world seems to miss. In 1996, when he was 25 years old and working in Canberra, he received a bravery medal for saving an 18-month-old girl from a house fire in the suburb of Holt. His family and friends were so deeply proud of Jamie's courage, but all he felt in the quiet moments that followed was sorrow that he was unable to save the girl's 4-year-old brother. 7 years later, Jamie lost all his possessions when his rental home in Duffy was consumed by the Canberra bushfires of the summer of 2003. In the quiet moments that followed that fire, Jamie turned to God and the universe and his own mind, hopelessly trying to solve riddles of fate and karma and misfortune. But I'm the guy who saved the girl, he told himself. Then, I'm also the guy who couldn't save the boy. There's another quiet moment he wants to share because he feels it's fairly representative of the pain he says resides just beneath the brave faces of many fire-affected residents across the Bega Valley Shire. This is the moment when he found himself alone on his devastated property, but for his loyal half-Kelpie, half-Australian shepherd dog, Oni. Surrounded by the charred wood and tin that was once his home. He doesn't know what triggered it exactly. The fire was a big part of it. The future. The past. Not long before the fire, he'd broken up with his partner of 12 years, so love was a part of it too. It was just a series of quiet moments. Drag a burnt log or two across the property. Clear some debris. Find a rope. Take a seat someplace peaceful while you try again to solve the riddles of fate and karma and misfortune. Then look down, after all that deep thinking, at the thing you've made from your own shaking hands. A noose. Jamie takes a long, deep breath. Exhales. These quiet moments, he says, we've all had them. This thing called life. Jamie laughs. My life's been sort of dictated by all these moments. Each one has helped me to know what it's like to be in need. Then you can look in others' eyes and you can see their heartbreak. And you know you can't solve their problems, but you can let them know how you feel about it all. Like, we're going to make it, and you're okay. And there's been so many days where it's been so hard for me too, to put one foot in front of the other. But that's what we've got to do, you know? You just have to push. You just have to push on.
And now to our final prayer, and if you will join the responses of the altar. To our God we pray, grant us the courage to hope.
Alone for your presence, your promise, your peace.
Grant us the courage to make